Reflexive pronouns. Listen to me speak and see if you can answer these questions. How do reflexive pronouns end? How are reflexive pronouns used? How does help change when used with a reflexive pronoun? And how else can reflexive pronouns be used? Reflexive pronouns end in self or selves. They refer to a singular or plural noun or pronoun that is known or has already been mentioned. Reflexive pronouns are used as an object when the object is the same as the subject of the verb. For example, I fell and hurt myself. Myself is a reflexive pronoun which refers back to the pronoun I, so it is the same as the subject. The meaning of some verbs changes slightly with reflexive pronouns. For example, help, which when used with a reflexive pronoun can mean to take something. For example, help yourself. Like in the sentence, you can help yourself to as much food as you like. Reflexive pronouns can also be used for emphasis and to mean alone or without any help. For example, she can tie her shoes by herself now. If we just say she can tie her shoes, we understand that, but using the reflexive pronoun, herself, emphasizes that she can do it alone and without any help. So how did you get on with those questions? Number 1, reflexive pronouns end in self or selves. Number 2, reflexive pronouns are used as the object in a sentence, and they refer back to the noun or pronoun that is the subject of that sentence. Number 3, help was given as a verb that can change slightly when used with a reflexive pronoun. Question 4, reflexive pronouns are also used to emphasize doing something alone without help. So the reflexive pronouns are myself, yourself, himself, herself, and itself for singular nouns and pronouns. And the plurals are ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. So I mentioned earlier that reflexive pronouns are used as the object in a sentence. They're used as an object when the object is the same as the subject. So have a look at this sentence. I haven't introduced myself. If I say this sentence, the subject is me, Fiona. Myself is the object, and myself is also me, Fiona. We don't usually use reflexive pronouns with actions we normally do for ourselves. For example, take a shower or wash. You could just say, I showered and washed. You don't have to say, I showered myself and washed myself. But we do sometimes use reflexive pronouns to emphasize something we have done or another person has done for ourselves or themselves. Like in this example, despite having been shot, he called himself an ambulance. Now, being shot is very serious and you're likely to be very hurt. So here they have used the reflexive pronoun to emphasize that this man was able to do something by himself without any help in his condition. Despite having been shot, he called himself an ambulance. Reflexive pronouns are often used with prepositions, for example, for and with. Here are a couple of examples. They had to cook for themselves. If we don't use the preposition, they had to cook themselves, well, that gives the sentence a very different meaning. That means that they are cooking their own body. So here we need to use the preposition for. They had to cook for themselves. They had to cook their own food. And you look very pleased with yourself. We can also use reflexive pronouns to emphasize the noun. For example, the day itself was great, but the preparation was stressful. So here, itself, the reflexive pronoun, is being used to emphasize the noun, the day. And here's another example. The children themselves were fantastic. So themselves is being used to emphasize that the children were fantastic. When we use a reflexive pronoun with by, it means alone or by yourself or without any help, like the example we had earlier. Here are a couple of other examples. I can do it by myself, and it is such a big house to live in by yourself. So you heard earlier how some verbs change their meaning when they are used with a reflexive pronoun. The example from earlier was with help. You can help yourself to some food. That means that they can go and get their own food. They don't have to wait for another person to serve them or get some food for them. When we use help with myself, for example, I saw some new shoes and I just couldn't help myself. I had to buy them. Here, the meaning changes to mean resist. I couldn't help myself means I couldn't resist. Catch is another verb that changes meaning when used with a reflexive pronoun. Catch usually means to get hold of something. For example, catch the ball or catch a fish. But when used with a reflexive pronoun, the meaning changes slightly. It means to realize you were doing something. Here are some examples. I caught myself driving to my old house yesterday. I caught myself thinking about him. Find also changes and is used in a similar way alongside reflexive pronouns. You could say, I found myself driving to my old house yesterday, or I found myself thinking about him, and it would have the same meaning. When we use see alongside a reflexive pronoun, it means to imagine something, like in the question, can you see yourself living in another country? We mean, can you imagine living in another country?